Hi everyone, as Denise said, my name's Robyn, and I'm a facilitator at the Clean Air Strategic Alliance. At CASA, we develop solutions for air quality issues by working together with industry, government, and non-government organizations. Our ultimate goal is to reach consensus among all the interested parties through using collaborative processes. As a facilitator, my job often requires me to put myself in someone else's shoes to see where they're coming from. So tonight, I want to take you on a bit of a journey to see what the process is like through one of our participants' eyes. So let me put on someone else's shoes. Hi, I'm Joe Public, and that was my backyard. I'm pretty concerned about the impact that air emissions might be having on my health as well as on the environment. I started talking to some folks in my community, and we all agreed that we really wanted to do something about this issue. But what could we do? We talked about some of our alternatives. We thought that we could chain ourselves to the gate of the factory and try to get it shut down. We thought of something more moderate. Maybe we could organize a letter writing campaign and get the government to try and change regulations. We also thought that maybe we could just ignore the problem and hope that it didn't affect us, or maybe that it would go away. We also thought about trying to get into discussions where we could negotiate for what we wanted. Soon after that, I saw an ad in the paper asking for people to participate in a public process to develop a policy for managing these air emissions. The process was being facilitated by an organization called CASA. I didn't know anything about CASA, but I did a bit of research, and I found out that they're a nonprofit organization. They reach all their agreements through collaborative discussions with industry, government, and NGOs. Also, all their decisions have to be agreed to by consensus. At CASA, this means that everybody at the table can live with the final agreement. I told my community a bit about CASA, and we agreed that it might be our best alternative, as long as CASA really did what they said they were going to do. My community asked me if I would represent them at the first meeting, and I agreed. At the first meeting, I was pretty nervous. I felt like I was taking on industry and government. I felt like they had a lot of power and I didn't have very much. I also wasn't sure how I was going to get everybody at the table to understand what my issues were and to really hear what I was saying. I felt pretty intimidated that I had to represent my whole community. How would I figure out what to say to accurately represent them and all of their concerns? And also, how would I let them know what was happening at the table so that they could understand the process? At our first meeting, our facilitator talked to us about positional bargaining and how this probably wouldn't be very effective. Like this lion deciding what to eat for dinner, when focusing on your positions, your opening demand is usually only ideal from your perspective. Our facilitator told us that positional bargaining is adversarial and that people feel like they're in conflict with each other and with what other people need. People tend to mislead each other and conceal relevant information, and they use threats and arguments to try and win. When I thought about defining the issue in terms of my position, which was to get the plant shut down, I realized that it meant that at least one of us was going to lose. Our facilitator explained that when the problem is defined in terms of our underlying interests, it is often possible to find a solution that satisfies everyone. So how was I going to figure out what my underlying interests were? The facilitator asked us to spend some time developing an interest statement. To do this, we needed to ask ourselves why we held the positions that we did. This would help us to figure out our underlying interests. The facilitator explained that although our positions might differ, we'd probably find that we shared some of the underlying interests. Once I started to delve into this exercise, I realized that my interests were what I really wanted or needed to get out of the negotiation, like clean air to breathe and a healthy environment. At our first meeting, or at our next meeting, we were supposed to come prepared to discuss our interests. But I felt like I hadn't really developed a lot of trust with the other people at the table. I wasn't sure that I was ready to share. But then someone else started sharing their interests, and I realized that they were saying a lot of the same things that I was saying. I thought, that can't be right. They can't mean the same thing that I did. So I started asking some questions to get more clarity about what they meant. I really came to understand the power of paying attention to the other side's interests. Understanding their interests didn't mean I had to agree with them, but it did mean that I had to walk in their shoes, and this was a powerful experience. In order to build agreement, I truly had to understand and care about what the other people's interests were. Now it was time to start building solutions. Through this process, we started to become interdependent, almost joined at the hip, because we needed to focus on our shared interests and find ways to reconcile our differences. I realized that my ability to get what I wanted was completely dependent on the other people getting what they needed. Each of us had to really try and see the value of the proposals on the table and help the others to meet their needs so that they would do the same for us. It became pretty apparent that there couldn't be any pieces missing and that we all had to work together to ensure that everyone was getting what they needed. To reach our final agreement, we used objective criteria to evaluate all the options that we had generated. Our facilitator encouraged us to think about our BATNA, our best alternative to a negotiated agreement. The reason we were negotiating was to produce something better than what we could have gotten on our own. There were times when people wanted to backslide to their original positions. This was tough, but many of us continued to focus on interest-based negotiation, and this seemed to be contagious. Finally, it was time to present the outcome of the process to my community, the people I was representing at the table. Since they hadn't been part of the process, I was really worried that they'd think I'd sold out or compromised on what was really important to them. By now, I had strengthened my relationships with the other people at the table, and they actually helped me to take my community on the same journey that we had been through as a team and explain to them how we reached our final agreement. Now that the process is over, people often ask me what I learned and would I participate in a collaborative process again? And the answer is yes. I believe that collaboration produces better, longer lasting, and more innovative agreements. Lots of people have the idea that negotiating means you have to compromise, make some concessions to get what you want. This process helped me to see that it's okay to compromise on your positions as long as you don't compromise on your interests. I realized that you really do need to stop and listen to what others are saying. The most effective negotiators are the ones that can ask skillful questions. Lastly, I realized that lots of people say they focus on interests, but not everyone does. I now understand that working with interests is not only a nice thing to do, but it's essential for effective collaboration. So as I said at the beginning of the presentation, I'm a facilitator at CASA, and I just wanted to take you on this journey so you could get a feel for what it's like to be a participant at our process. I don't think it matters if you're a facilitator or any of the people sitting at the table. This process can only work if you understand and focus on your interests, if you care about other people's interests, and if you remain committed to developing a shared outcome that works for everyone. So, how do you successfully navigate through this complex maze of collaboration and multi-stakeholder processes? Well, CASA has a part of that answer. We're developing a guidebook to help you find your way. For project managers and facilitators as well as participants, our guidebook provides a reliable roadmap that works at any multi-stakeholder table. For participants, it provides guidance on how to negotiate effectively and make sure that your time is well spent. For project managers, it combines the concept of project management and strategic decision-making, all overlaid by how these things are different when you're facilitating a collaborative dialogue. Our guide walks you through each step of the project, including who should be involved and what the activities and deliverables are. And at the end of each step, there's a section on common challenges that you might face and how to overcome them. Thank you.